Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and the Donkey Kong Bananza devs are not who you think. I believe. Hear me out here. So, what I'm getting at is that right now, a lot of people think that the 3D Mario team is solely responsible for Donkey Kong Bananza, and that's why the game looks so good. But because people are assuming this, people are also now starting to assume that 3D Mario is years away, perhaps like 4 to 5 years away, which would mean we won't be seeing 3D Mario until the second half of the Switch 2's generation. And I don't see this happening. I don't believe Nintendo would ever position themselves to wait this long for a 3D Mario. And I actually think the truth of the matter is a far more interesting, exciting situation for not just 3D Mario, but also for the future of Donkey Kong. So that's what I would like to fully explain today. Before doing so though, let me tell you about this sleep mask from Manta Sleep, the sponsor for today's video. If you find yourself in need of a little bit of extra rest or an afternoon nap, then this sleep mask might be a great fit for you. When I tried it out, I was actually surprised at how soft and comfortable it is, and when you put it upon your face, it does its job. It blocks out all light and it puts you in a position to sleep quite easily, undisturbed. And I also found that the back strap was highly adjustable and not abrasive in any way. It was all very comfortable and soft to put on. So if you're looking to improve your sleep, check out the Manta Sleep mask in the link in the description below with my code SLEEPRESTART. So let's talk about why people think it's the 3D Mario team making Bananza first, and then I'll explain why it probably isn't entirely just them. So firstly, when we take a look at the game, from a visual perspective, it does seem like it might be an evolution of Mario Odyssey. And then we also take a look at the UI elements, and clearly there are some similar traits there as well. And then when we consider the gameplay, both games have DK and Mario exploring these open sandbox environments, collecting a variety of things. Both characters can transform into a variety of different things as well. We have the Bananza forms for DK, we have the possessions by Cappy for Mario. And then we also consider that both characters have a suite of platforming options at their disposal from the very beginning that you can string together to do a variety of different things in exploring the world. It does feel like there is a connection here between Bananza and Mario Odyssey. And I've even theorized that there might even be a story connection as well when we consider Pauline and Udon City. But despite all that, I do not believe that the 3D Mario team, the makers of Mario Odyssey, is the sole team responsible for Bananza. Now, some people might bring up how we've gotten multiple reports that at a press event, the producer of Super Mario Odyssey, Yoshiaki Koizumi, has been seen watching people play Bananza, which is further leading people to believe that it is indeed the 3D Mario team making this game. But let me counter that point there. Yeah, I think there's a great chance that Yoshiaki Koizumi has a hand in Donkey Kong Bananza. I wouldn't be shocked if he's the producer of the game. But here's the thing, Koizumi is producing games all the time. It's not like he's only producing one game every 5 to 8 years. No, every 1 or 2 years, he's producing another game. And it's not just him, a variety of Nintendo producers work on multiple games. Take Kensuke Tanabe for example, he's producing Prime 4, but he's also responsible for Luigi's Mansion, and more. So just because it seems like Koizumi has a hand in the development of Donkey Kong Bananza, doesn't mean the entire 3D Mario team has only been working on Bananza these last 8 years since the release of Mario Odyssey. Before continuing though, let me just quickly point out that I'm aiming for a goal of 60,000 subscribers, so if you find yourself enjoying my content, your subscription would be appreciated. And let's consider the history of things here, because very consistently, Mario's been available early on to every Nintendo generation. For the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES in North America, Super Mario Bros. Was the pack-in game. For the Game Boy, Super Mario Land was a launch title. For the Super Nintendo, Super Mario World was the premier launch title. For the Nintendo 64, Mario 64 was the premier launch title. Now in more recent generations, we have seen Nintendo opt to not have 3D Mario or any sort of mainline Mario adventure be the launch title, but Mario is still available fairly early on to the generation. Mario Sunshine available by the second holiday, Mario 3D World available by the second holiday, Mario Odyssey available by the first holiday, and there are other examples here where mainline Mario is available very early on. In fact, the only exception I can think of is the Virtual Boy, and that's just because that console flopped and it wasn't even a mainline console, really. So, point is, there is a long, consistent history of a mainline Mario adventure, not Mario Kart, not Mario Tennis, not Mario Party, like, yeah, those are involved, but a Mario adventure title being available early on for a generation. And there's reason for this. Mario is obviously the main, most important character of Nintendo, and mainline Mario games are always big sellers for their consoles. Mario Odyssey is the 5th best-selling game on Nintendo Switch, so I don't see how we're going to have to be waiting more than 10 plus years to see a follow-up to something like that. That doesn't make any sense from a business perspective, and really, I would be totally beyond shocked if Nintendo intentionally positioned themselves to not have 3D Mario available early on. In other words, I think it's extremely unlikely that the 3D Mario team would be so focused on Donkey Kong Bananza that they would not have a 3D Mario game ready fairly early on into the Switch 2's life cycle. Now, I do think Bananza will be taking the place of a big Mario platformer for this year, but what about next year? I think next year is probably ideal for Mario, especially with the Mario movie coming out next year and also Mario's 40th anniversary later this year. I think there's going to have to be some kind of announcement there. And there are rumors to back up this idea that a 3D Mario game has been in the works. Not that I feel like I really need the rumors to back it up, but just to further support the argument here. We have journalists like Necrofelipe from Universal Nintendo suggesting that 3D Mario is coming out in 2026. Now, if you don't understand this tweet I'm showing here, basically, Nintendo Life put out an article where they were considering a conversation or a video that Kid and Chris have put out talking about the possibility that if the 3D Mario team has been focused on Donkey Kong Bonanza, that 3D Mario might be years away. But here, Necrofelipe says a while probably just means 2026. Is this based off something he knows? Possibly, maybe not, maybe that's just his own thinking. But there are others. For example, Nash Weedle, here on the Attack the Backlog podcast that we keep pointing out. Definitely check out this podcast here, an amazing podcast with a lot of really cool nuggets from Nash Weedle, who, by the way, has been continually getting things right and when it comes to the Switch 2. Every couple days, there's always something else that he had leaked months in advance that has been confirmed. But he has talked about how he has heard that we should be seeing 3D Mario in 2026. Or how about how we talk about how before the Switch 2 was even shown off, we had different insiders like Andy Robinson from Video Games Chronicle talking about how 3D Mario could be a launch title for Switch 2. Now, obviously, that hasn't panned out, but that was based off things he had been hearing, which would suggest that 3D Mario has been in the works and Nintendo simply pivoted and is saving 3D Mario for a little bit later. Point is, there are a variety of insiders who have reported on hearing about 3D Mario being in the works. And these insiders have a history of proving to be insiders. But let me also go to this leak from Midori, and I have a list right here to kind of simplify. I don't want to summarize everything because we've talked about this so many times already. But there were 8 different codenames leaked by Midori, a credible leaker. Even though people wanted to be very skeptical of these leaks, they have continually proven to be true. As you see here, we've already had 3 of the 8 100% confirmed, and 2 more seemingly are likely, in Spiral being the codename for Splatoon Raiders, and Silver Star being for Donkey Kong Bonanza. And I'll touch on the Silver Star thing here in a moment here, because I think that's actually very important for this conversation. But notice how there's another codename for SP Red. Considering that all these different codenames are being proven true as more time progresses, 3 of the 8 have already been 100% confirmed, 2 more seem very likely. It seems reasonable to expect that these others are likely going to be proven true as well, because they were all based off real information. And for those that don't understand, SP Red is likely the next 3D Mario. When we see Nintendo codenames that involve red, that has to do with a mainline Mario adventure. And for those who are wondering if this somehow relates to Mario Kart World, no it doesn't. We've already had it confirmed that the codename for Mario Kart World is Drive, which is in line with all other Mario Kart codenames that have to do with racing in some way. And so point is here, this is another leak that shows that there is a Mario adventure game in the works, and considering that most of these projects have come out recently, I think there's reason to believe that these others are not that far off either. Point is, 3D Mario I do not think is that far off. But who would be working on 3D Mario? I think most likely, probably still, the 3D Mario team, and I think the fact that the codename is in line with prior Mario Adventure codenames is also suggestive of that. But then who has been working on Donkey Kong Bananza then? So since we've gone these codenames, I've been theorizing that Project Silver Star is for a 3D Donkey Kong game based off the Mario Odyssey engine. And that looks to have been basically proven true. For those that don't know, the codename for Mario Odyssey was Red Star. So when we hear about Silver Star, that star part of the codename is suggestive that it's some sort of follow-up to Mario Odyssey, but not necessarily having to do with Mario. Silver, as in a Silver Kong, a Super Donkey Kong who's silver, a gorilla, silverback gorillas, that was a thinking there that seems like it might be true. So then you might be wondering, well, does this mean that the 3D Mario team has been working on Donkey Kong Bonanza and the next 3D Mario game? And maybe, because they haven't put out a full-on mainline game since Mario Odyssey, which released in October of 2017. We were talking about this in June of 2025, more than 8 years later, and we're only about to see Donkey Kong Bonanza come out next month. So, conceivably, maybe they have been working on 2 different games at a time, and Bonanza has been prioritized to come out first, and then perhaps sometime next year, they'll finish things up for the next 3D Mario. That is something I've considered, but I no longer think that is actually the situation here. So years ago, we had heard rumors that the Odyssey team was working on Donkey Kong. But there appears to have been some confusion because some of the rumors were just suggesting that it was an EPD team working on Donkey Kong, not necessarily the Mario Odyssey team. And we had actually heard from DK Vine, who many consider to be a credible source, to have reported on other things that have since been corroborated, like the cancelled Vicarious Visions project of a Donkey Kong game. And they said some very interesting things years ago about this rumored Donkey Kong project by Nintendo EPD. So here they were responding to some reports about this rumor, and here they say, the way this is being phrased makes it sound like this is just the Odyssey team doing Donkey Kong. I've been led to believe that this is a new EPD team that is formed from other teams specifically for the purpose of creating Donkey Kong games. And you see, this part to me makes so much more sense. Look at what Nintendo has done with Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong is the first expansion to Super Nintendo World. Donkey Kong is a big part of the Super Mario Bros. Movies. Donkey Kong has had a new redesign as we've been seeing lately, not just with Bonanza, but just with their typical sort of Donkey Kong key art material. And we are seeing that pushed all over, including in Mario Kart World, and now we have this huge Donkey Kong Bonanza game to come out to start the generation. The idea behind this rumor was that Nintendo wanted to bring Donkey Kong back to prominence, make Donkey Kong a major player again. And so you look at Bonanza and how amazing it looks. If this is being made by a new team, and they're successful, what that will mean is that we now have a 3D Donkey Kong developer, a dedicated 3D Donkey Kong developer to look forward to moving forward. The same way we can see a Splatoon game, a Mario game, a Zelda game, a Xenoblade game, every few years, this is another team that Nintendo can rely on to bring in another Donkey Kong game. Which makes way more sense to me that Nintendo's been expanding internally with more teams to make more games, because guess what? Development is taking longer and longer, getting more and more expensive, so how does Nintendo balance that out? By expanding themselves and partnering with other people as well, so they can put out more projects in between. And putting together a new internal team to focus on another series that they think could be a big seller makes way more business sense to me than just putting the 3D Mario team to work on Donkey Kong and not have the 3D Mario team work on 3D Mario until years later when it wouldn't benefit the launch of their new generation so much. But let me read you another part to this DK Vine article here, because yes, they're reporting on something that is unconfirmed by Nintendo, so it is a rumor, but looking at what they've been saying about this game years in advance, it kind of seems like they got legitimate information on what was going on so many years ago. What I've been told is similar. It probably won't have the country branding, as outside of some retro-tinged arcade memorabilia, Donkey Kong Country is the Donkey Kong brand now. The info about Diddy, Cranky, and the Kremlings is all news to me, although it's been implied to me that the new game will carry on the legacy of the country games in a way that Jungle Beat never did, especially with the enthusiasm of the younger EPD devs and the after effects of K. Rool performing as well as he did in the Smash ballot. This isn't 2004, and there's no longer a battle for Donkey Kong's soul. So yes, Diddy is probably a sure thing, and I'd be shocked if K. Rool didn't appear. So I think this is really important because I do think it adds to the validity of this article from so many years ago, because when we take a look at Bananza, from what we understand of Bananza, it is indeed what they explained. Donkey Kong Bananza is not forgetting about Donkey Kong's past, including the country games. In fact, it's highly prevalent all throughout that they care about the Donkey Kong Country series, or just the rare-made Donkey Kong games in general. We now know that Diddy Kong and Dixie Kong are involved, as is Rambi, as is Cranky Kong, all character designs made by Rare. They're all fully involved with Bananza here. And I've made so many videos talking about the plethora of evidence supporting the idea that the Kremlings have made a return, and I think by extension that includes King K. Rool. Now that part hasn't been confirmed yet, but the main point here is that Bananza isn't like Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, where they intentionally ignored all the Rare-made Donkey Kong stuff. All the Rare-made Donkey Kong stuff is highly prevalent in Bananza. And so basically, this article from DK Vine, I think, was right on the money on exactly what's going on. I think this situation is actually somewhat similar to the situation with Splatoon, where Nintendo got a whole bunch of young developers together to form a team to make Splatoon. And what happened? Splatoon was a great success, and it's become a consistent IP that Nintendo can rely upon every few years. I think that's exactly what's about to happen with Donkey Kong here. And this also opens things up for the 3D Mario team to focus on 3D Mario. So we're going to have the best of both worlds. And on the note of how these things may be linked, I do think that elements of the 3D Mario team likely were involved with this project. Some members of that 3D Mario team formed a new team to make Donkey Kong Bananza, and they likely built it off of what they had with Mario Odyssey, hence why we're seeing these connections here. Especially we have the same producer, Yoshiaki Koizumi. He might have a vision where he wants these games to be connected, which is why they appear to be connected. And so this is what I believe the truth to be. We have a new Donkey Kong developer formed by younger talent at EPD, and some elements of the 3D Mario team are working on Bananza, but the 3D Mario team, for the most part, is still working on 3D Mario, and that's not so far off either. This is the best case scenario. This is a scenario that makes the most sense from a business perspective. This is what I think Nintendo would have decided to do, considering what's been going on. So this is what I believe. And I think the evidence strongly supports that idea. Of course, it's not fully confirmed. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, everyone, this is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Make sure to check out that Manta Sleep mask with the link in the description below with my code SleepRestart. And I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.